So please make yourself at home. This is the list, okay? Conversation. Meditate first, nice and
That's my wife.
Oh yeah.
March is the April.
Yes.
This is her born month.
Okay, yes.
Birthday was 11th,
Okay, yes.
72.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can give the talk first of all. Would you like to receive the 5 precepts first?
And some days.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, then discussion is just quick.
Okay, and then the shouting after.
Yeah.
Very good.
Ajahn Thero, after finish,
Back to normal.
no, not separate.
What's up? Very good. Welcome everybody, and thank you for inviting me here today. I was just talking with Ananda, and it's nice to be able to give the 5 precepts first of all. It's a Sri Lankan tradition, but it's also a wonderful thing to do. You know how I discovered the 5 precepts? My family, okay, I'll hold it easier. My family weren't Buddhist. No one even knew how to spell the word Buddhism. But because I started meditating, I was a smart guy. You know what I did before I became a monk? Who knows? I went to university. What university did I go to? In England, yes. Which one? No, we call that the other side. I went to Cambridge. So in Cambridge, my field of study was theoretical physics. So in there I would have just bumped into Professor Stephen Hawkins, but he wasn't famous then. I do remember going to lectures with the same. His teacher was Professor Sharma. I remember going to his lectures on astrophysics of the galaxy. So I was quite a smart young man. Because I was a smart young man, that I was interested in all different types of religion. And I thought just because you were born in one country, you always have to follow the religion of your country. Why can't you choose? So I remember just before going to university, I won a school prize. And what to do with that prize? I always was interested in like spirituality, religion, faith. So I went to the bookshop and got different books on all the main religions. My understanding was, if you're going to choose a religious path, it's like choosing a car which you're going to drive. You really want to do market research. And my market research was reading about the different religions. And to me, I found that Buddhism was by far the most rational, closest to theoretical physics, and kind religion. We never had any violence. And any person who wants to use violence to promote a religion like Buddhism, I'm really against. You don't need to have violence to teach. That's why even during any of the conflicts which have happened in Sri Lanka, I'm proudest of the monks who give refuge, say to the Tamils, or whoever it is, don't care who you are, we want to make sure that you are looked after and cared for. And things like that really inspired me. So I became a Buddhist and actually started with meditation, making my mind nice and peaceful. And when I became a good meditator, little things like lying never made any sense to me. Why would you want to lie? You're deceiving your friends, or your parents, or your husband, your wife. It's not a lovely thing to do. It actually spoils many relationships when people do that. And the relationships, your friendships with one another is so important. So I gave up any type of lying, even to the point when I did get a job I'd always declare all my tax. I thought even if you didn't declare the tax, you've made a lie on those forms. Again, that was lying, and it's also stealing. So I understood why we have the rules against stealing. And obviously killing. You know, the last animal which I killed, after my father died, that my mother was staying in a small flat, and there was a mouse in the flat. And my mother was terrified of mice. My father had passed away, so I set the mouse trap. And I was very clever, so I caught that mouse. And so I heard the mouse trap go whack, and I went to investigate this poor mouse. The metal bar was over its neck, it killed it. I remember seeing that, and I've never forgotten that. That poor mouse, it was still warm, had its beautiful fur, and because it was dead, I could actually stroke it. It's a beautiful animal. And I thought, why did I ever want to kill that? And that's the last animal I ever was responsible for its death. I thank that mouse for teaching me the importance of not killing. If ever you see an animal which is dead, please look after it. Even actually look at it, so you never ever want to kill anything ever again. And so it's also, in those days, before I was a monk, I did have a girlfriend. But honestly, that it was so expensive having a girlfriend. I understood why in the the third precept, you're only allowed one. That's not sexual misconduct. Not having two girlfriends or boyfriends at the same time, you can't afford it. And the last thing which I learned, it actually was the last thing which I learned, was not taking alcohol. It was a weird story, I'm going to tell it, that when I was at Cambridge, the only way you can get to a college like Cambridge as a poor student was getting scholarships. So I was one of the scholars of the college. And that meant every year, this was the Emmanuel College in Cambridge, every year you had a scholars' dinner. And at the scholars' dinner you had all these students who were scholars, plus all the professors and lecturers attached to that college, including the master, who was a Nobel laureate in chemistry. And this was a huge event. It was so well known as the most delicious food, but also the most expensive wines. Now I was a student at the time. I was a Buddhist, but quite a stupid Buddhist. So we started off with sherry in the gallery at Emmanuel College. It was built by Sir Christopher Wren, and it was a huge oak table. And we were all gathered around the oak table, and they had butlers, real English butlers, and the tails, impeccably dressed, presenting the sherry to every student. That first year at Cambridge, I was studying maths. Is anybody good at maths here? I can't speak, it's only to speak to a monk. So anyway, what I decided, because with a friend who was also studying maths, we noticed the butlers were going around the tables in a clockwise direction. So we worked out if we walked at the same speed in an anti-clockwise direction, we would get twice as many servings of sherry than anybody else. And being stupid, that's what I did. So I don't know how many glasses of sherry you had. Then you went down to the main hall for a 9-course meal. Now, I know that in Chinese culture, I go to places like Hong Kong and Singapore regularly, a 9-course meal is quite regular. It's the first time in England I'd ever had such a feast. And again, the butlers were there serving these different types of food, absolutely delicious. This was the highlight of cuisine. And with every course you had a different wine. So after the first course, the wine glass was taken away, a new one was put there. And you had butlers hovering over you. They'd always come over the right side of you to fill up, they'd never over the left side. That was the custom. And then after all that glasses of wine. The last part of the so-called celebration was going into the old library, and in the old library there was another huge table with 3 glasses, one for port, one for claret, and one for Madeira, 3 different types of wine. And on top of that, there was a huge goblet. It's, I don't know, much bigger than this, even like bigger than that teapot over there. And that goblet was solid silver, encrusted with jewels. And it was like something which would be worth a fortune. It was an ancient acquisition of these old colleges. And so that was filled, and to this day I can't remember with what wine, but every student, every teacher, every person who's a member of that college, they would fill that goblet full of wine, and you had to drain it, and drink the whole lot, and then say a toast in Latin. That was supposed to be a celebration. But that day I got so terribly drunk, I do not know how I got back to my room in college. I remember waking up in the morning with all the food I'd eaten the night before in front of me on the pillow. It was disgusting. You would think, why did I say that story? Because I was totally ashamed. This was some of the most delicious, beautiful food cooked by experts. And none of it did me any good. And all of that alcohol, why did I do that? Peer pressure, that's all. But afterwards I realized that was such a waste of food, a waste of people's time, a waste of my time. I never wanted to feel like that ever again. So I actually gave up alcohol at that point. Never took any alcohol ever since. That was about 60 years ago, I think. Maybe not 60, 56 years ago or something. So, you don't need to go to such lengths to prove it's not really helpful. Have you ever seen a dog eat alcohol or drink alcohol? Dogs are much wiser than human beings, aren't they? At least dogs have some precepts. Not many, but they don't lie. And they don't take alcohol. So if you see anybody taking alcohol, say they're not really up to the same standard as even a dog. And I say that because it's not necessary. You don't need to do that to be happy, to be joyful. You know my nickname in Sri Lanka? The smiling white monk. So you know that I'm a happy monk. But I don't take any drugs or alcohol at all. Just the precepts keep you happy. We do a little gatha after giving the precepts. Silena sukhatinyanti, silena bhoga sampada, silena nibbutiyanti, tasana silam visodiye. That through sila it supports eternal Nibbana. Silena nibbutiyanti, silena bhoga sampada. It helps with your finances. Basically, you don't get stupid and waste money. And silena sukhatinyanti, it leads to happiness. And I've proved that. So anyway, I'd already was keeping these precepts for quite a while. When I went to one of the temples, and they said, you've been coming here a long time. It's about time you took the 5 precepts. You know what I answered as an arrogant young student? I said, Venerable, I don't need to take the 5 precepts. I've been keeping them for the last couple of years without breaking one of them. I said, okay, fair enough. So I never took the 5 precepts when I was young. I kept them instead. That made me so much more peaceful and happy. So that's some advice to you. If you're going to, you're all mostly young women, or young guys, are in the corner over there. Look, I ask you, the young women here, would you like to go out and marry a guy who gets drunk? Would you? Is that something which is attractive? Do you hear that, guys? Guys, would you like to go out and marry a woman who gets drunk? Oh, they're shaking their heads, good. So if you want to find a nice friend and partner in life, just keep these 5 precepts. It's something which, when I was in Malaysia, there's a lot of Buddhists in Malaysia, and we had a youth group there, and they, about maybe a couple of hundred, and we divided them into the different genders, men and women, and we asked, first of all, the women to make it interesting. How many times you listen to Dharma talks and they send you to sleep? They're not really relevant to your life. So we split the children up, male and female, and we asked the women, what type of man do you find attractive? And when they were saying the answers to that, all the men were all paying attention. They want to find a nice girlfriend who is good to them, and they like. So how do you be attractive to a girl? You know what they said in the end? Someone you can trust, someone who's fun to be with, someone who's reliable, honest, someone who doesn't cheat on you. What they were basically saying was, women would like boys who keep 5 precepts. And then I asked the other way around, guys, what type of girl do you like? Do they have to spend money on expensive clothes? I said, no, as long as they're nice and clean. Do they have to go and get their face all thought up in a spa? I said, no, they don't need to do that. What they want for long-term relationships is someone they can trust, who's kind, who's reliable, who's honest, who's virtuous. Women who keep the 5 precepts. So, and this was, I didn't force those answers, these are the answers which came. That's why these precepts are so important. You all know how to take those precepts? You do it at Sunday school, if you go to a Sunday school. You do it at all sorts of ceremonies. So, can I give you the 5 precepts now? If you don't want to take them, you don't have to. So what you do if you don't want to take them, still put your hands up. When everyone else is going like palm out in front, you just go. So no one knows. Okay, so here it comes. Just the 5 precepts. Anatipata viramani sikapadam samadhiyami, which means I vow to not kill any living being. That's deliberately. If you happen to tread on a snail because you don't see it at night, it's not a problem. You try to preserve the life of others. Nadee Ganga viramani sikapadam samadhiyami, which means I vow not to take what's not given to me, not to steal basically. If you manage to take something which is not yours by mistake, go back and tell them straight away. There was once when I was doing a lot of building at monastery, we went to one of the big hardware stores and we got lots and lots of wood to build a kuti, and there was so much wood that some of it wasn't charged. They'd forgotten it. It was totally unintentional. So the next day I went back there and I said, we took this wood yesterday, but you forgot to charge us for it. So can you please put it on the bill? I still remember that hardware guy at the counter looking at me as if I was crazy. He said, just wait here for a moment. He went to see the big boss. He said, that we love having honest people in our store, so we've approved a builder's discount for your monastery from this day on. We actually saved a lot of money, much more than we would have saved by not paying that bill. Honesty really is something which encourages people. It's not stealing. It's making sure that somebody has to pay for that. So we want to make sure it's paid for. So that's the stealing. The 3rd precept, Kame suvichacha viramani sikapadam samadhiyami, which does mean does not misbehaving in sexuality. One partner at a time is enough. Honestly, I don't know how old you are, if you have a boyfriend, or boys have girlfriends, people you like. It's wrong if you're going out with someone, they go out with someone else at the same time. It's a lack of trust. You know that later on when you get married, you don't want to just doubt whether your husband, whether your wife is having a relationship with someone else in the office. That's really hurts big time. So we make sure we keep that. And also, please excuse me for being direct, all the girls here, if you have a boyfriend, sometimes if you do take alcohol or drugs, then you lose your sense of control. And sometimes you have sex before marriage, and then you get pregnant, and you girls are the ones who have to take the problem, much more than the guy. So please try and keep those precepts as best you possibly can. Be careful. And then the next precept is lying. Musawada viramani sikapadam samadhiyami. So she's very easy. Maintain the precept not to say bad words. It includes lying, but it's more than that. I was taught by my teacher, Ajahn Brahm. It also includes making promises which you never intend to keep. When you invited me to come to your house, and I said yes, then I'd have to be some terrible sickness or some death or something to stop me coming. If I make a promise, I will keep it. And hopefully that you understand the importance of that. Sometimes you can make a promise, you never intend to keep it. That's lying. That's against the fourth precept. And if everybody was as honest like that, we'd have a wonderful world. And the last precept, not taking alcohol or drugs. Sura Vilaya Vajapamadhatana Viramani Sikapadam Samadhiyami. So those are the 5 precepts. You don't always need to take them at a Buddhist ceremony, because remember their importance. That's the most important of all. So please keep them. It makes you happy and protects you all. It makes you actually quite wealthy. You don't need to cheat people to be wealthy. You be kind to people. That makes you wealthy. You have friends and relations who love you because you're a good person. You know good people. Are you a good person? Could you be better? Don't just stay at being good. Always think, how can I be better? Kinder. So anyway, those are the precepts. As you see, we made them much deeper than just giving the 5 precepts like in this chant, which is more important. But of course, one of the reasons I'm here is because I know your wife's untimely death. And today will be her 50th birthday. Yeah. How old do you think I am? Do you know? Have a look. Okay, you go to the temple too often, yeah. I'm 72 now. But when I was in Thailand at a conference, when somebody asked me that question, how old are you, Ajahn Brahm? And then I gave the answer. They asked me, how come you can actually... is it true? I don't know what I look like, but people think I'm maybe about 50 or 60. Is that accurate, you reckon? So how can you look young when you're still 70 or 72 now? And I always put it down to your precepts and your meditation, lack of stress in your life. So you don't have to have chemicals to put on your face. Just be a good person, a kind person. That makes you smile. And that makes your skin much more... And I don't use any creams. I just have a shower every morning and use ordinary soap. I don't use anything else. So this is just the nature of being a good person, living a good life. You tend not to wear out so much. You don't have many worries. So that's the secret of looking young. your precepts and goodness and good attitude in life. But of course it's always sad when somebody dies young, and especially for you. You must miss your wife very much. That's natural, so be honest about that. But when somebody does die, how do you deal with that? My father died when I was only 16. At home. I was woken up in the middle of the night by my mother. I can't wake up your dad. So I went to the bedroom and shook him. He was cold. He had died. I value that experience very much because you're actually close to the death of somebody you love very much. You can actually touch him. That's why sometimes in Sri Lanka we're not so afraid of death that we hide it from people. Make sure you come up, touch, feel someone has passed away. You know you love them very much. It's the nature of our life. That must happen. But the weird thing was that when he did die, I never cried. At his funeral service, I didn't cry. I didn't feel like crying. It was a strange experience I had, even though he was probably one of the people I loved the most. He was my father, he was a very good man. So, at that time I was a 16-year-old boy. Please don't judge boys so harshly. It takes us a while to develop our emotional intelligence. My intelligence on maths and physics was already very strong, but the feeling part hadn't developed yet. It was only when I became a monk I had the time, the opportunity to understand how I felt. It was weird because it was one of these like unfinished business. You know, your mother passed away, your wife. How do you feel about that? First of all, you have to be honest, but honestly, I never felt sad. It's someone I love so much. And after all those years of being a monk, yes, I got the answer for my feelings. And I shared this with so many people over so many years, because it's very helpful. My feeling when my father died, after I shook him, he would wake up, and at the funeral service in Mortlake Cemetery over in West London, was exactly the same feeling I'd experienced so many times in my young life before I became a monk, when I went to concerts. I grew up in London, 60s and 70s, and I do remember going in to see the Rolling Stones when I was only 11. And that's why I was really angry at the girls, screaming and shouting all the time. I wanted to listen to the music. Well, I couldn't, it was just too loud. But I shouldn't have been in there anyway, snuck in, I was underage. But later on, this is the old type of music, the rock music. I remember seeing the very first concert of this rock band called Led Zeppelin in the Marquee Club in Wardour Street in Soho. And they were just starting out. They became like a world famous band. But one of the people you may remember, he's still alive today, he's still extremely popular. We went to this upstairs venue in North London. There was a band playing there. There was only about 6 or 7 people turned up to listen. That's few. I thought the band would just go home. They played for us. It was like a private concert. And the lead singer was a young man called Rod Stewart. Have you heard of Rod Stewart? Oh my goodness. I really am old. Rod Stewart, he can give his concerts for tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah, he was English, or Scottish, a Scotsman, but he became like a national treasure in that country. To see Rod Stewart, I got a private concert from him. But anyway, after all those concerts and performances, when it was finished, what did we do? We stood up and shouted for more. And sometimes they play another 5 minutes. But after the encore, it's called, after the encore would finish, that band had to walk away. And I had to walk away in another direction. And I knew I would never hear that band again. Not like that. But after a great concert, I never felt sad. I never cried when I left the Royal Albert Hall or left the small clubs in London. Never felt sad. Instead, I felt, wow, what an amazing performance that was. I was so lucky to have been there at the time. I enjoyed every minute of that. Thank you so much. Now, Sir Rod Stewart. The Rolling Stones is amazing, they're still alive. But anyhow, that's how I felt after the end of a great concert. Beautiful, wonderful. And that's exactly how I felt when my father died. Only 16 years. Encore, the encore wasn't to be. But thank you. Thank you for all you taught me, and I will never ever forget it. And I haven't. That's over 60 years ago now. All those wonderful things which he said. He was the one who taught me. He said to me one day, son, wherever you go in your life, whatever you do, however you turn out. I was a young 16-year-old. Well, actually, when he said this, a couple of years younger, 13, 14. However you turn out in life, please always keep in mind the door of your Father's house will always be open to you. He will never close off the place where he lived. I was his son, good, bad, didn't really matter. He'd always loved me. And that meant so much, as you can imagine. His house was not a house at all. It was what they called a council flat in London. And we were legitimately poor. We wouldn't bother locking the door of the house. He said, no, leave it open. If a burglar comes in, maybe he'll have pity on us and leave us something. It wasn't much of a house or a little flat, but still, the most important thing, the door was always open to me. He would never kick me out. I was his son, and that was it. That was enough. It's the first expression of what we call unconditional love. Love you no matter how you turn up. He was one who taught me that. Open the door of your heart, no matter who you are, what you do. I always valued that. So this was a man who died when I was only 16. Thank you, Dad, for those 16 years. I never ever thought of what I'd lost. I never even said ever I've lost my father. Instead, I thought I'd gained him for 16 years. What wonderful years those were. Thank you so much. How old were you when your mum died? No, you. Who's the daughters? This one over here. 1, 2. You got 2.
2 daughters.
2 daughters. How old were you when your mum died?
16.
16, same. You? 20, yeah. So you only had 16 years with your wife. Would you rather you didn't have those years at all? Of course, you gained 16 years of a very wonderful, loving mother. You had 20 years. You're even luckier. So you never think what was taken away from you is in what you had. It changes the whole way of looking at that. Thank you, Mom. How many years were you married before you had your kids?
23 years.
23 years. Or 23, doesn't matter, 23. If he says 23, that means he really valued you so much. What you value always increased. So wonderful years. It'd be great if she was alive today to see how your kids have turned out, but it wasn't to be. But thank you. Thank you, Nadee, for those 23 wonderful years. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It turns the grief of death into something else, something you value. We can't always be here. But if you live your life as best you possibly can. So, what do you remember about your mum? Now this is one reason why, honestly, and I'm a monk, I can't lie. Sometimes I like going to funeral services. Because then you find all these people come up and tell you about what that person was like. You know, when they come and do eulogies, they usually start saying, what a great cook they were. Or some of the stupid things they do, like burning down the kitchen because they forgot to turn the gas off or something. Human, everybody laughs. It's like, these are people you love, they're human beings. Never once have I been to a funeral service and people have said how much they earned at the office, or how big their house was, or what type of car they drive. It's always about the most important values of life. The things you remember. The kindness, the love, the sharing. And what a wonderful person it was to meet. How you felt, even though you may not be part of the family, you always felt welcome. These were your friends. Friends are some of the most important things in life. So that's what you remember. And that's what they always say at eulogies, at funeral services. That's why I like going. It's the most wonderful things about the people who passed away. Things which I never hear as a monk. That is one of the reasons why I could really understand when this gentleman in the United States decided to exercise his freedoms to hold his funeral service about 3 or 4 days before he died. He had one of these terminal diseases which were irreversible. He was going to die. And he said, I want my funeral service before I die, so I can hear all these wonderful words of the people who will say these words usually, but I'm already dead. When I can't hear these words. But have the funeral service before I die, that I can hear all the amazing things which people say about me, which are always so kind. That's what he did. It's a beautiful way, when you pass away, instead of trying to remember your own virtues, you hear what other people think about you, which is always usually much kinder and less judgmental. That's what he did. I always thought it was a wonderful idea. Have your funeral service a couple of days before you die, so you can remember what people think of you, and what a great gift you were to your friends and family. But he also said, and because I'm a monk and you know my character, I also include, he also said, so he can also have a couple of days to amend his will if anybody say terrible things about him or physically tell I like humour because humour is quite natural. Everyone laughs together no matter what race or religion. So anyway, that's how I look at life and death. We'll all die one day. Do you want a good death? A good death is always caused by a good life. Your kindness, your goodness, your service, your friendship, looking after one another, just caring for one another. And you get so many people come to your funeral service saying these wonderful things about you. Then you realize that's what's really important in life. Your goodness, your virtue, your peace and your kindness. You may have heard me say that many times. Whenever I do a bow, the 3 bows to the Buddha Rupa, I always bow to 3 things which the Buddha represents to me. And those 3 things are virtue, peace, and compassion. It's so easy to bow to virtue. I've seen the value of being a good, kind, honest, trustworthy person. I see, really, at school and university, they should mark that rather than your exam results. That gives you success in life, much more than just knowing the right answer to stupid questions. And number two, the virtue, the peace. Are you a peacemaker in your life? And you see conflict, you join in the argument, or do you try and settle it and make peace together? Like your two sisters, do you really fight one another, or you just love one another as kids? It's usually about this competition, and sometimes even jealousy amongst siblings. My brother and I, we fought when we were young, two young men, 2 years apart. And when I became a monk, my brother became a banker. And he told me, he confessed, he said, I never told other people in my office that my younger brother was a Buddhist monk. Because in the banking industry, that may be an obstacle to success in his career. We think in different ways, a banker and a monk. But nevertheless, it was only 3 days ago that in his car he sent me to the airport in Heathrow. I stayed overnight with him, which is really good friends, more than brothers. He's a retired banker. I'm jealous of him. I'm a monk, but I can't retire. They still love each other to bits. This actually tells you just what can happen, when you learn the value of life. You may have differences of opinion, that's natural, but don't forget the most important thing you hold in common is your love for one another and for your father, and still your love for your mum. Even though she's passed away, still you can love her. Never forget that. I still love my father, even though he died again, 56 years ago now. A long time. I can just think of him and can just picture him straight away. You never forget the people you love, especially someone as close as a mother or a wife. So because of that, that you don't lose anything when someone dies. You just gain. Someone told me, am I speaking too much? Was it okay? Okay. I've got to ask sometimes. That's why I keep eye contact with you. You start looking down and looking at your clock, I realise it's time to finish. But someone told me this very beautiful story about, in the old days, here in Perth. How did most people come to Perth from overseas? They came in boats, or Fremantle ships, yeah. And so you can imagine like your father has to go visit Sri Lanka. He would not go to Perth airport, he'd go to Fremantle, to get on the boat. You can imagine, you go and send him off. He's an important person, someone you love. And he's standing on the deck of the boat, and you're on the quayside, waving at him. It's not like these flights in aircraft, which are just a bit too separate. But this is in a boat. You wave at him, bye Daddy, he waves back at you, be good, look after everybody. And then you hear the sound of the boat siren. And the boat starts sailing off. Do you go back home straight away? No, you wait. You're still waving, and waving and standing. And even though you can't see your father as separate from any other passenger standing on the side of the boat, on the deck, that one of those grey shapes is your dad. And continue waving until that boat sails so far away, you still stay there. And then the boat gets this amazing place called the horizon. When it sails over the horizon, you cannot see your father anymore. cannot hold his hand. You can't say anything to him. He's gone over that place. But do you think he's disappeared? He's just out of sight, out of touch. That's like your mum. She's held out of sight, out of touch. But she doesn't disappear. In Buddhism, the stream of consciousness carries on. That's why I'm not sure if that's happened to you. Have you dreamt of her? Have you smelt her in the house? You be honest, right? What about you? I mean, did you feel her that she was around? And that happens very often. When people die, they don't disappear straight away. A lot of times, how many days now she passed away?
No, 7 months.
7 months, okay. 7 months is a matter of time. If you really just want to find out, when you go to bed tonight, make a resolution. Mum, can you just come and see me tonight in my dream? You'd be surprised how effective that is. How do you think your mum feels when she dies? How do you think your mother feels? She's so desperately concerned about how your dad is, how he feels, and how attached a mum is to her daughters is incredibly strong. She's so concerned about you, making sure you're okay. That's why sometimes she's been trying a long time. Say, look after yourself, look after one another. Sorry I had to go. But please, always you're a family, look after one another. That's why people sometimes see visions of things. There's lots of such wonderful, beautiful stories. I'm going to tell you a weird story now. This is not just about human beings, but animals who pass away. This one lady over in Rollestone comes to our Amma group. This lady in Rollestone, I think she was elderly, so she hadn't any husband anymore. The love of her life was her dog. And she'd go for a walk with her dog every morning in some of the forests in Rollestone, and in the evening too. And when they go for a walk together, sometimes they would play. One day when she came back from her walk, she noticed her finger ring had fallen off. She'd lost it in the forest. So they went back to look for it. But trying to find a finger ring in a forest full of leaves and twigs was almost impossible. So after an hour or two they gave up. And another few days later she wasn't at all concerned about the finger ring, because her dog got very sick and the dog died. And many of you know that if you have a dog in a family, you love it so much, it's like a part of the family. You miss it terribly. But her, in a house by herself, she swore to me, she said, look, I hear that dog. It's still here, it barks, but never in the room where I'm at. I run to that room, open the door, think I'm going to see the dog. But as soon as I open the door, the barking stops. I know it's my dog. Because you know the bark of your dog. And this was happening for quite a few days, until she was standing next to the front door of her house, and she could hear her dog barking right outside the front door. So this time I'm going to see it. So she quickly opened the front door of her house. There's no dog there. In the middle of the welcome mat was her finger ring. That's the last she heard of her dog. The dog had found the finger ring for her. The one last thing the dog could do was a gift for the woman who loved it so much. To me, that's not scary, that's beautiful stories about people who passed away can sometimes help in ways you can never imagine. Surprisingly. Still looking after you, somehow or other. So anyhow, again I do talk a lot. So, any questions you'd like to ask? Yeah, questions, comments or complaints? Was your mum a good woman? Excellent. No doubt that you didn't think, well, excellent. You know, sometimes in Buddhism we say the last thought is the most important. That's not quite accurate. Because the dying process, I've been very fortunate to be with people who have died, sitting next to them, and seeing that the death is, as any doctor or even palliative care nurse would know, death is a process, not a moment. As many thoughts can go through a person's mind at their death period, every 5 minutes or more. And those last thoughts are just basically a summation of your life, the most important things of your life. That's why it's so true to say a good life makes those thoughts at the end, which creates a good future life afterwards. And there is this one story, I don't know how much of my stories you've heard, but this is one of my favourites. There was this, what we call in Buddhism, a Wesak Buddhist. A Wesak Buddhist is someone who only goes to the temple on Wesak Day. The rest of the day stays in his shop making money. And this guy was a Wesak Buddhist in Colombo. He'd only go to the temple one day a year on Wesak Day. So he went to the temple on Wesak Day and he was really bored. He didn't like giving dana to anybody, but nevertheless he went because that's the only way to keep his wife quiet. So he went there, and then he valued this time because his wife, so not his wife, so the priest in the temple gave this really interesting sermon about dying, what happens to people when they do die. And most importantly, talking about the last thoughts being the most important. And this priest even said the most important thoughts is to think about the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, the triple gem. And if you can remember those 3 words even, Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, it's like you're guaranteed to have a heavenly life in your next rebirth. So this was a businessman in Colombo. So he was thinking, he said, I figured out a way to beat the system. So when he went back home, he went to see a lawyer. He had 3 sons. So he renamed them Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Because he knew that when he died, his 3 sons would be by his side. And so he'd always be thinking of them. So he never went to the temple ever again, not even for Wesak. Never gave any dana, never kept any precepts, thinking that he was sure to get a heavenly rebirth once his 3 sons had been renamed Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. It was all going perfectly. Now, after a long life, he was really sick, he was in bed, about to die, pass away, and his 3 sons were right next to him. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. I'm going to heaven. And then this thought came into his mind. If Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha are right next to me, who's looking after my shop? And that's when he died. You cannot beat the system. If you're more worried about your shop and your business and money more than anything else in life, that will be your last thought, no matter how you try to beat the system. So if your mum was a good mum, she doesn't need to beat the system. So just be happy for her. I'd be more happy if she was waiting a bit longer, but nevertheless, may my wife always be happy about. I will wish you that maybe we can see each other next time. Any questions yet? Any comments? How many of you are afraid of dying? Do you know what dying is? I don't know why people are afraid, and they don't know what they're talking about. Sometimes through meditation, or even sometimes powerful minds, they can understand the process of death. Death is not to be feared, honestly. The dying process can sometimes be painful and difficult, but death itself is a beautiful release. There's so many stories about that. I remember there's one BBC documentary about death and dying. And I will never forget this because they were interviewing this quite elderly English lady. She had so many sicknesses in her life. She was always in and out of hospital. And then one day, while she was in hospital, she died. And after she died, she was revived afterwards. And that's when she could say what it was like when she died. When she died, she said, she felt so wonderful. The aches and pains of her body had all disappeared. She felt so free. And how she said that the spirit came up to her and said, well, I'm sorry, but it's not your time to die. You have to go back. And that's when she got very, very angry. But I don't want to go back. Well, you have to, said the spirit. I refuse. But you must. You're not going to make me. But you have to. No way. Don't you even try. She got very angry at the spirit. That's actually how she replied in this video, which the BBC made when she was remembering her experience. And then she said this spirit did something she would never ever forgive. Somehow the spirit grabbed hold of her body and threw her back into the old body which she just died from. And she came to again. She survived. And then in the interview, I couldn't stop laughing at this. And then she said, I know that eventually I'm going to die. I've got away with it this time. When I die next time, when I really die, the first thing I'm going to do is find that spirit. And the things I'm going to do to him, I just can't repeat on TV. She was very angry and she was seeking revenge on the spirit who threw her back into her old body so she had to suffer some more. I liked that interview because it was honest. It was real. And it demonstrated that once you get past that dying process, most people are just so peaceful and happy. Whatever sickness your mum died of, she's free. That's how people feel when they die. They're free of this really heavy body. I know that because that's what happens in meditation. The body vanishes and you're just beautifully free, so happy. So this is actually why I can actually say honestly that once your mum passes away, what was her sickness before she died?
She was not having any indication. She never expected that it was suddenly due to heart attack.
Heart attack, yeah.
Yeah.
But even that, there must have been some difficulty in the body somewhere. Some blockage of the arteries, not being able to move as easy and fast. That's what some people hide, those symptoms.
Yeah.
So not to worry about it. And
She was not having cholesterol or pressure, so she had not get any medication.
Yeah, but sometimes those symptoms are sometimes there, we just hide them. But anyhow, honestly, she's much happier sort of out of her old body than in one. She's very unhappy that she's missing the people she loves. But we have to do that sometimes. She did a good job of you too. Did a good job of you as well. what love does. It makes people better people. So well done. So I say that because whenever there is an experience like that, the honesty will tell us we can die at any time. That's one thing we can never predict, the day and the time of our death. But when it happens, please let people go. Go without tears and without smile, without laugh, and no freedom. That's why sometimes one day your two daughters will get married. Are you married yet? One day it will happen. When it does happen, think of your mum. Because sometimes, I don't know how this works, but sometimes you don't feel her around. You will miss an occasion like that. Same with you. I mean this is honesty. Because sometimes when that happens, it's a beautiful part. You're always going to be part of it. You can't stop that. Same with you. Got a connection there which is so many years of being together. Same with you. Would you like to see your mum again? Of course. That's the other beautiful thing about Buddhism and rebirth. Sometimes you meet somebody, and sometimes you look at them and you say, you can't know why, but you know that person. You've seen them before, not the first time. How many of you have ever had love at first sight? Maybe you're not old enough to have love at first sight, but that's happened to many people. You know, one of the relationships in Hollywood which lasted so long was of the actor John Travolta. You heard of him? John Travolta. And his wife Kelly. It was only finished maybe a couple of years ago when Kelly died. But they were married so harmoniously, I don't know how many, 30, 40 years. And John Travolta, the way they met, I remember the story of how they met. Kelly was from Adelaide. And being from Adelaide, she aspired to be an actor. But she wasn't that good. But she hoped one day she can be an actress. And anyway, with John Travolta, so she went to the cinema in the days when you didn't watch movies online on the TV, you watched them at a movie theatre. So she went to the movie theatre with her best friend just to watch a movie. And it was one of the first breakthrough movies with John Travolta, Grease or something. And then on the outside I saw the pictures of the stars in this movie. And this lady, Kelly, took one look at this picture of John Travolta. She'd never met him before. And straight away, didn't actually know who he was. He wasn't famous yet. His first movie. And to her best friend, who was a witness, she pointed to him the picture on the cinema wall. I'm going to marry him. A totally ridiculous thing to say. He was a film star. She was like a poor aspiring actress in Adelaide. I'm going to marry him, she said. And she was right. They did get married. They had this relationship which was one of the best in the whole of Hollywood. Do you think she'd never met him before? Previous life. And sometimes men are obviously when you do get married, you have a kid maybe. If you have a daughter, even a son maybe, the one tries another gender next time. Have a look. If it is your mum reborn, you'd recognise it straight away. That's a weird thing. There's lots of stories like that from friends. Okay, well, I'm talking too much, I should be answering questions. You okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Any questions from anywhere? Otherwise, I'll start with the chanting blessings. I know that. Are you going to have dinner here afterwards?
What?
Yeah.
You're having dinner here afterwards?
Ah, yes.
That's why people want me to stop. They're getting angry. I'm going to have dinner so I can keep talking forever. Okay, is there any question you'd like to ask? Or I'll start with the chanting. What do you think, Ananda? What would you like me to do?
So, as per Buddhism,
Yeah.
we know whenever we born, we have one day
Yeah,
it has to go. Yeah. So that's been Ajahn Brahm Thero. So everybody having the fixed date, no? So
yeah,
yeah, that we do not able to decide when it is go. So
Indeed.
considering that my wife's departure, we never thought and we didn't get any sign. And we
Indeed.
went to participate for my mom's first death anniversary.
Oh yes,
We had a lot of religious works,
yes,
and after the COVID, we actually gone first time before we went to participate for my mom's funeral.
Yes.
That time we were not able to make our relatives,
yes,
but this time she was get chance to meet all the
good.
close relatives, and she was happy. So even she participated for religious works.
Yes,
Yeah. So that's why we were thinking. So she had got a good time to meet each other and participate in the religious works.
yes,
Yeah. Finally, she died in Sri Lanka.
okay,
Yeah.
auspicious time.
Yeah, and also most of her relatives
Yeah.
was able to participate for the funeral.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Sometimes to will yourself to die is very, very difficult. So, but I think that it was an auspicious time for her.
Yeah,
But then after a while, you don't, honestly, when you're dying, you don't think of that. You think about, oh, were you there as well? And it's like, oh, they were. All of you, and you as well?
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that was auspicious then.
Even in the last minute, we all were.
Yeah.
Whenever she was crying, we all
Yeah.
in front of. She was crying too much.
Yeah.
I was not able to think what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
she felt some indications. She was telling, even I didn't think that much dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's wonderful to be
Yeah.
able to cry. Please never suppress your tears.
we heard before a lot of stories and
Yeah.
a lot of our close friends,
Yeah.
relatives face like that issues.
Yes.
But whether it happened to us,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really.
And it's after a while you wonder how rewarding it is. Sometimes you wonder what's the meaning of these things. How can you find meaning, like in wars where even children get killed by bullets? How can you find meaning when people get tortured, which happens in this world? Finding meaning, what happens is important. And finding meaning means how much you learn from that. As Buddhists, it's not the first time you get born, or the first time you die. And so after a while we find meaning in this, to realize that our days we don't know when they're going to be ended. But in the meantime, we make sure to do the very best we can every day. We do have the opportunities to be kind, to be generous, look after one another. If that's all we learn from this, it's a wonderful lesson. We find its meaning. How to love each other, be kind to one another, because we never know when we're going to pass away. Look at me, I am old, I am fat. When I went through the customs over in US once, they asked me, said, you're wearing a robe. What have you got under your robe? Is that a suicide belt? I said, no, it's only fat. And the guy said, same thing. Suicide belt. Get the joke? Anyway, so you never know when you're going to pass away, but one of the most important things which keeps you alive is, again, your goodness. That's keeping me alive much more than anything else. The service which you give for others. And I think I told my driver coming here that I just returned from UK just 2.5 days ago. I should be totally jet lagged. The reason why I'm not jet lagged is because of the opportunity which you gave me this evening to serve. That is so important. So even when I was over in UK, what I found so rewarding being a monk is when these ordinary people, like the person, one of the first people I met over there, I was going to teach a retreat in the town of Sheffield. That's in the north of England, in Yorkshire. So when I got to Sheffield, in a train, I was walking to the venue. And the venue was a Quaker house. But as I was walking to the venue, so there was roadworks, like there was in Perth. It had already started. And this man in a big backhoe, he was a local man, a Yorkshire man, English. This man in the backhoe sort of looked at me, opened his window and said, do you know you are the spitting image of Ajahn Brahm? I said, yes, because I am Ajahn Brahm. But you're supposed to be in Australia, what are you doing in Sheffield? And he listens to my talks online. And he stopped his machine. All the other workers had to stop as well. And came out for photo session. He said, I listen to your talks all the time and I recognise you. I just couldn't believe you're supposed to be in Perth, Western Australia. What are you doing in Sheffield this time in the morning? So I explained it to him. We had a wonderful little time there. It's great when people, you make a difference in people's lives. And that's my pay. I don't get any money. I don't want any money. I get well fed and have a nice cave to sleep in. But just being able to help others and to serve, that is the source of energy while I live. And as long as I can keep serving, I don't think I'm going to die. You're keeping me alive. That's honest. Does that make sense to you? This is what you understand about life. It's not how much you earn, but how much you can do and give and help and love, look after others. That makes sense to you over there? I'll keep looking over here. Guys over there, make sense? I'm sorry that Sri Lanka didn't do that well in the cricket. Actually, they did do very well. They were a good Buddhist team. You know how you know they were Buddhist? Because they kept on losing. Now think about it. Does a Buddhist want to cause suffering to others by taking everything? Would a Buddhist like to hit a 6 and way over into the crowd? That really disappoints others. That causes a lot of unhappiness to others. Compassionate cricketers would never score a 6. And any ball which was hit at them, they would always drop it. The last thing you want to do is cause suffering to anybody else. That's why Sri Lanka lost the cricket this time. They're being really compassionate. What is one of the most important teachings of Buddhism? You throw the ball, hit the ball, you're about to catch it. let go. Don't attach. So that's why I should have lost. Okay, I'm running out of stories, so if there's no other questions and you're really hungry, I'm going to just start giving some blessing chants. Is that okay? Okay. So the blessing chants again is merits to family and friends and family that have passed away, especially to your mother and to your wife. Sometimes what I do is I can't really say this, but to try and feel if your mum's around. Do you think your mum, if she possibly could, can come and listen to this? Of course she would. So that's why this chant is more direct than you can think. To your wife, your mum, your friend, I don't know, your uncles, aunties, sisters, cousins or whatever, just to all of you. Kavaniyamata kusalena yantan santan padan abhisame chasako uju chasu huju chasu vacho chasa budu anatimani santu sako chasu bhavo cha apakicho chasamba hukawuti santindriyo cha nipako cha apagapo kulesu ananukito nachakudan samachare kinshiye nawinyu pare upavade yom sukino wa kemino hontu sabe sata bhavantu sukhitata ye ke chipana bhutati tasawa kawa vawa anavasesa dikawa ye mahantawa machima rasaka anukatura ditawa ye chadita ye chadure wasanti avidure bhutawa sambhave siva sabe satha bhavantu sukhitata naparo bhavani kubetana timanyeta katatinan kanchibaya rosana patika sanya nanya manya sadukari shayamata yata niyam puta ayusa ekaputa manurake evam pisa popute sumanasa pavaye aparimana metancha sabaro kasmi manasam bhavaye aparimana udanato chatiryancha sambada averana titan sharan nisinoa sayano yavata savigatamito etan sati aditya vamaneta viharam idamahuditi chanupagama silawa dasanena sampanno kame suvinaya geda nahi katata sayam punareti sadhu sadhu sadhu. As you all know, that's a Kurani Metta Sutta, and the merits of that are dedicated to Nadee, first of all, your wife, your mother, and to all other beings as well in the family who passed away, maybe many years ago, maybe recently. May they all just remember they will time ago always stays in your mind and heart. You always have respect. Thank you for looking after me for such a long time. You never forget that. Okay, so that's the chanting done. I know you had lots of things to offer, but basically just a glass of water will be enough. I'm a monk, I don't need very much. Even today's lunch, you brought so much in my bowl, there's no way in the world to eat all of that. It's all I like, but it's just too much. So thank you all, and my gratitude to all of you for listening so carefully.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Is that satisfactory to you? You want to try and please everybody. And the audience, I always make sure that if it's the youngest audience, we try and make sure it's aimed at things which can be interesting to them. And hopefully it was.
A cup of tea?
Just the water.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite things is Sri Lankan tea with tin kiwi. But not tonight because I've got jet lag and I just need to have a tin kiwi. You know what tin kiwi is? Condensed milk. Honestly, that sometimes you go to a Sri Lankan house for the morning dana, forget what else you put in my bowl, as long as it's a cup of tea with tin kiwi. Because you do make the best tea in the world. Honestly, you never get tin kiwi like you do from the Sri Lankan house. Yeah, good tea, yeah.
Honorable Thero, recently, I think few months ago, you visited Sri Lanka, no?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you faced some problems. We
Not
very sorry to hear that.
No, it's not real problems. It's just some fun. Because I'm well known in Sri Lanka, that they took me to the VIP lounge. Not even the flying Singapore Airlines, not even the Singapore Airlines lounge. Now the one which is like down below for all the really, really wealthy, famous cooks. I shouldn't say that, should I? But they put me down there. When you go to the VIP lounge, you just sit down in comfortable chairs, you don't queue up for anything. And these hostesses come and say, may I have your passport available? So you give them the passport and your airline ticket. They just take it away. And then they come back with your tickets, all checked in. You don't go through any baggage controls. You're VIP. But then I was there in plenty of time in case there's any queues. I didn't need a queue, just sitting down there, just waiting for the time to go to your flight. You had your tickets, you had your passport back, and didn't have much baggage anyway to check in. So then, flying Singapore Airlines, they're not Sri Lankan Airlines, they're very, very strict. And so when it came to close to my time of departure, I mentioned to one of the hostesses, should we go to the gate now? Because Sri Lankan Airlines is very strict, they don't wait for anybody. They said, Ajahn Brahm, don't worry. And that really shook me because I usually tell other people not to worry, now someone's And they said, we always make sure the VIPs get on the flight, we always get them on last, so they don't have to wait. So just relax. So I relaxed. A few minutes later, I said, look, I really think we should get to the gate now. Singapore Airlines said, well, maybe I said, no, don't worry. We'll get you on the flight, no trouble. And then when there was a bus leaving, but apparently it was taken up by a Sri Lankan politician. I couldn't get on. And so they got me another vehicle, but when you got to the gate, I saw the plane and saw the air bridge start to separate. I missed my flight.
Sorry.
They would then say sorry. So I went back to the lounge, had another cup of tea. They arranged an alternative flight. So it's just an interesting story. I always find meaning in things so you don't get upset. You don't get angry at people, especially those hostesses who are trying to do their best. I think they were overruled by the politicians. So that's the only problem. But it doesn't matter. The politician needed to go more urgently than I needed to go. As a monk, you talk like that. Never get angry. Never get upset. I did remember a story somebody did tell me. This was in Bodhidharma Monastery quite a few years ago. There was a businessman and he was working in Mumbai, in India. And he had to get to his flight to go back, I think, to Europe. And he booked a taxi. But some of the taxi drivers, they can't even speak English. They're poor people from the rural areas. And this poor taxi driver they gave him just didn't know the way to the airport. And so he started getting lost, caught up in heavy traffic. And he was looking at his watch and thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to miss my flight. And he got so late, he thought, well, this is India. In many places in India, the flights are always delayed. But he was getting more and more angry. When he got to the airport, he could see through the window his plane take off. And he was, imagine how angry you get with a taxi driver. I'm going to sue you, stupid man. Why? At least you should know the way to the airport, for goodness sake. And as he was shouting and scolding the taxi driver, he saw his flight come straight down to the ground, crashed, all people killed. I think it was a KLM flight or something. Many years ago, he actually saw that. He told me personally, afterwards, you wonderful taxi driver. Take a tip, $100, 200, you saved my life. And I remember that story. Because sometimes you think you miss your flight, everything goes wrong. Sometimes it can save your life. A Singapore Airlines flight never crashed. But who knows? You know. So that's how you deal with difficulties and problems like that. Look at them as gifts to test your resilience so you don't ever get angry. So that when I did have the opportunity, I said, oh, forget it, it's only a small thing. Doesn't matter. I got back to the person, occasional times before I told no problem. Have you ever made a mistake? Any of you? Of course you have. So, what do you do when you make a mistake? Laugh. Tell everyone about it, and they will laugh as well. Some of the stupid things which you said or done. And one of the first funerals I ever did in Perth was for a mother. It was about the relation, I forget which, of a Sri Lankan boy who was at our temple. And it was done in Subiaco. And I went there and I said, to open up, and said, I'm here to do the Buddhist funeral service for the mother of this guy, I think something like that, who just passed away. And that's when, because I'm a Westerner, I didn't really understand the name. I said, the mother of this person, and there's an elderly woman stood up, Sri Lankan woman, said, it's not me who's died, it's my husband. I got the name wrong. I had a 50-50 chance and got it wrong. And she complained, I'm not dead. My husband passed away. And then I started laughing, everyone else started laughing. That was one of the most wonderful funerals. I had lots of fun with funerals. And this is the other guy who died, he was an American Australian woman. And for funerals, you don't have to have an ordinary coffin. You can design your own if you want to. When I heard that, I told the wife, well, the person who's died, your husband, you can make a special coffin for him. Just not an ordinary one off the shelf. But she took that on board because he gives a white water after. So they made this coffin like a boat. They made it the right size. They made it out of jarrah wood. And it was so heavy. The pallbearers almost died when putting it on the conveyor. The coffin, yeah. They made it look like a boat, custom built. And it was so heavy, it was very heavy jarrah wood. They put it on the conveyor and they pressed the button to commit it. It was so heavy the motor was struggling. And so the glass partition opened. And when the glass partition closed, the coffin hadn't gone through yet. So it jammed. So there was a coffin half in and half out. And at that, the wife jumped up on the conveyor belt to try and push it through. And all the friends said, "Are you trying to get rid of him that much?" They all broke out laughing. And it was one of the most beautiful funerals I've ever been to. Instead of actually people being restrained, they celebrated his life, really celebrated it. And one of his friends said, the first time he got a car and started driving, the very first day he crashed it. The very first day his coffin is crashed out as well. Typical. That's the kind of funerals, the kind of life. They are not usual funerals where one is crying. They have a beautiful time together. If that was my funeral, I thought, oh, thank you. That's how I would like to be remembered. Causing a bit of mischief so everyone can enjoy this world. Not as you expect it to be, as it actually is. So I got delayed. Maybe it's not what it's supposed to be. It was good fun. I saw parts of Colombo Airport, not called Colombo Airport, I forget what it's actually called. Parts of that which hardly anyone else has ever seen. Good fun. Do you think so? You always see something good in everything. And it makes me talk even more. Your Peter.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Is everybody going to join in, at least say Anumodana, because that's one of the beautiful things which stood out in Sri Lankan Buddhism, much more than Thai or Burmese Buddhism. When anything is ever offered, you always rejoice in it, otherwise touching it, saying Anumodana Sadhu, because that means that you join in the merit. It's not capital.
No, this is the
Cards, yeah.
Woolworth cards.
Okay. Very good. One of the things which monks cannot accept, good monks, you can't receive cash. So these cards will give the Ajahn because they shop for food and supplies. Very good. Ooh. So I'm going to take you back because I'm not very often carries. Right. Very good. Excellent. What's your relation to the family? Are you?
They came from Sri Lanka.
Oh, very good. Thank you for
a
coming.
visit.
Excellent.
She was actually trying to meet you, Honorable Thero. She went, I think, to Serpentine, but
Okay.
on Saturday you were
Oh,
not
yeah,
there.
yeah, I was teaching here. If you ever want to see me, just go to the VIP lounge upstairs. Okay.
So, when next planning to visit to Sri Lanka?
I think what Venerable Metta Vihari, the Danish monk, he was saying probably just every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Yeah, because I'm not getting old, I am old. And you have to try and fit everybody in to the schedule. Also to be here, so that if you go on a Saturday you can see me. So sometimes you go to one place, people ask, where are you? So I try to make sure this is my main focus here. So probably in a couple of years. We'll wait and see, but it should be okay. Okay, you playing scissors and paper? Okay, you can do that. You know, because I'm a well-known monk, that when we had the ordination of the first female bishop in Perth, that was Kate Goldsworthy. So I was invited to her ceremony when she was ordained as an Anglican bishop, the first in the world. And so when I went there, they're mostly Anglicans, that's the religion. There was also the Catholic abbot of New Norcia Monastery, Abbot Placid, we were good mates, and also the head of the Uniting Church in Western Australia. So they put the three of us together in like the non-Christian pew. And it was such a boring ceremony. You know, respect different ways of doing things, but it went on for 2 hours. Really long, the ordination of Kate Goldsworthy. And so in the end, after 1 hour of trying to be behaved, the Catholic abbot of New Norcia, the head of the Uniting Church in Western Australia, and myself, we ended up cracking jokes together, like being naughty school children in church. But it was very nice people. You know, one of the jokes I say about Abbot Placid, he's passed away now. Have you ever been to New Norcia? That's where they have this old, one of the first buildings in Western Australia. It's very, very old. And when we went in there, he was taking me around, and I said, this is such an old building. There must be ghosts in it. You know what the abbot told me? This is the Catholic abbot. He said, in Christianity, we don't believe in ghosts. I got him. What about the Holy Ghost then? You've got me again. You know that sense of humour unites people. If you make a mistake and you laugh, people don't get upset and angry. You like friendship. So please cultivate a good sense of humour. That's why I said, why Sri Lanka lost the cricket matches. They're too Buddhist. I'm not being serious, of course. Excellent. So anyway, I'll give the blessing now. And this is to make sure that the merits which have been gained today get passed on to their intended targets, to your wife, to your mum, to your friend. May she receive these merits in abundance. Yata varivaha pura paripurenti sagaram evameva ito dinang petanang upakapati ichitang katitang tumhang kipameva samijatu sabe purenti sangapa chando panavaso yata manijo devaso yata Sabitiyo vivachantu sabarogo vinasatu mate bhavan vantavayo sukhi dikhayu gopava apivadan hasilit sanicham vutta pachalino chataro dhamma vatanti ayuvano sukhang balang. Excellent. Okay, we've got sore knees. Sore bottom. Excellent.
Ajahn Brahm Thero, just a couple of minutes, maybe bring the vehicle.
Okay, yeah, thank you.